just for everybody, compliance. We are up and recording, and welcome, Chavah, for coming here. We're going to start the um, recording or the stream to YouTube here.
Can you say my name again? It's Chavah.
Hava, Hava. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
All right, so here we go. And welcome everybody to another episode of Finding Beautiful Questions. I'm really excited today to talk with you and Hava Golden from the city of Chicago, my hometown currently. Me and her met earlier in the week, and the excitement and intentionality of what she does, and a little bit of the story of our similar families, and we were just off to the races right away. This is someone who made my day better, and what they do for people got me excited. And as everybody here knows, we're going to spend the next 40 minutes talking with somebody who is really out there empowering people with why they do what they do. How they do it is clear, and what they do helps you get to the next stage of how you want to do things or whatnot. She, a servant leader, and many other things. But how about from your own words, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Because it needs to be done.
I love how succinct that is. What would you parallel with that?
What would I parallel?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
Well, I don't know what needs to be done till I wake up in the morning. I know what needs to be done today, and I know what still needs to be done the rest of the day, but I don't know what needs to be done tomorrow.
So long-term goals or short-term goals, is that something that you're focused on both at the same time, or you just take it one day at a time?
Well, I'd say that my long-term goal is to really make messages be heard, make communication work. I mean, that's just a drive. It's not as much of a goal. Like, I have steps to do that with. Whatever has to do with getting a point across or making something clear or vivifying the truth, you might say, is what I do about everything.
And the first thing I think that I really hooked into is you talked about the idea of more visual words.
Yes.
That was really cool. Can you give everybody an example of that? Because I found that really powerful.
Visual words are words that allow people to see what's being said. Like, if you can see, let's say the roots of me standing here saying that when I wake up in the morning, first I thank for another day, and then I ask what needs to be done. And if you can see the water going into the roots and up into my body as I wake up, and the day starting, and me doing what needs to be done, that would be a visual.
I'm taking some notes here, and I found it tough to take notes because I was so locked into the story that you were talking about. So thankful for another day. And you talked about drawing energy up into yourself to be able to accomplish that because it just must be done.
That's right.
All right, cool. So we're off to the races here. So for everybody, this favor, this amazing thing you do for the world, how would you frame that as a question?
The favor I do, how would I frame that? Okay, all right. What needs to be done today, I guess?
All right. And with what we said earlier, would it be what needs to be done to make your message more understandable today?
Oh, I see. Um, it's not always a message. It's not always someone else's message. Sometimes it's mine. What needs to be understood today? Maybe that could be the question.
I like that. That's really good.
What needs to become known today or understood?
What needs to be understood? And I'll bring up the screen share for everybody who wasn't with us for the first part of the call where we were just talking about, what Hava feels as though a beautiful question is, and, how this comes from interest and how being around people is is part of her mission. And when it comes into account, Hava, do I have it correct in my mind that helping them with their message to be understandable, what needs to be understood today? Is
Yes,
that summarizing well?
that's right.
All right. And so the idea of fresh from emergence, where you could maybe you could fill people in on what that means to you.
Um, let's say that I'm in a conversation with someone. Most conversations aren't, I mean, some are work, some aren't, but every conversation has a purpose or it wouldn't be happening. So that person that's in the conversation with me may ask me a question. They may say, why are you doing that? And then I have to think what's behind that question in order to answer it in a way that they get something that needs to be known today. And that question emerged from them to me, but I might say to them, like, what's on your mind? And what are you thinking? What made you ask that question? And what that does, it just opens everything up. I once spoke with a woman who I had known for a long time. Be, be I happened to be sat by her. Someone sat me by her at a table. And I'd known her for a long time, but I never talked to her. And she doesn't talk much. So I just said to her, what's on your mind? And my goodness, it just opened a floodgate, a whole floodgate of her issues that she's a principal at a school, and about her family and about how she named her children. So I think that's what I mean by emerging. It's sort of like a fountain.
Sort of like hidden treasure.
Yeah, that's right. And that they may not have said, or they didn't realize even, but they pulled out of their own treasure chest.
Ooh, so that's fresh to them.
And
That's,
it's fresh to them. It's
that's
pure
really
fresh to me,
fresh.
but fresh to them, that's what I'm really hoping for.
Oh, wow. That I thought I understood what you do, but it sounds like, how long you been doing this for?
Well, as far as just jumping off the high diving board and just doing it is maybe 5 years. But for the most part, people have been asking me to do this for probably 20 some years, which I just didn't realize. I thought it was just, something that they asked me to do. But then I realized it's something that I could be doing, if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Well, you talked about some personal stuff with me last time, and you can reveal what you prefer right off the bat. So, what's an origin story that made you realize this is something you could do for people?
Well, one of the stories was, um, it's not way back in origin story, but I have a friend who's Russian. She's been here a long time, and she has still a very strong Russian accent. So she thought maybe I could help her because she was having trouble with interviews on the phone. People weren't, she wouldn't get the job. So I asked her to say, what does she say when they ask a question? I would ask her the question, and what would she say when I ask you this question? And she would say something very technical. She's a programmer, and she's a manager of programmers, computer programmers. And it was a very technical answer in a very deep accent, which was hard to understand and almost sound memorized. So I thought to myself, well, what if she heard herself say this? So I said, okay, let me hear you say that again. And so she described what she does again, and I recorded it. So I let her listen to it, and she didn't understand herself.
Hmm.
So what I realized was that I had a skill to pinpoint the issue, and she absolutely got the next job. We talked about how she doesn't have to memorize something. What she has to do is just say something from her own self and clearly and visually to let people know who she is and what her skills are. It was out of fear that she was saying something she memorized, and it wasn't working. So by pinpointing, that's what I can do. Is I think that was one of the opening pieces that drew me to what I do.
No, that's really cool. So she felt as though, what do you feel as though she was afraid of?
She was afraid of not being able to say the right thing to the person she was being interviewed by, to that person. She was afraid of saying the wrong thing, that they wouldn't hire her because she wouldn't include everything that she does. She was afraid that I still think she's afraid of her English. And so she was a bit afraid. So she wanted to have the words all set so that she didn't have to think of any words.
Is this rooted, you feel, after your experience in what people feel as though others will think of them?
Would you ask that again, please?
So is this rooted in this case of what, is it the outcome of the job, or is it truly what she feels as though others will think of her?
Well, it would be about the job, but what others would think of her in the job, not what others would think of her, because she's fine and regular.
So outcomes and judgment. Wow, that's really powerful. So then you talked about a diving board from there. So you've got probably a myriad of examples people have just been coming to you for, and then you decided, hey, I'm just going to do this. What happened?
Well, okay, what happened? Oh, so among other crazy stories, this is the final one. This is where I really jumped off the diving board. I was going for a study on a certain health condition. And the study would, you'd go for a certain number of times and then they would do a study. You'd either have a fake thing or a real thing. And I asked, how would this be done? And they told me, I said, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to do that. So they said, okay, let me bring the doctor in and let him talk to you. So the doctor wanted to know why I didn't want to do that. So I told him in a very succinct way. And this doctor said, wow, you're so smart. He said, I want to hire you. And that is when I jumped off the diving board. I thought, he said, I'll call you. I thought, sure. People say they're going to call you and they don't, but he called me very shortly thereafter. I told him what I charged and he hired me, and we've been working together. He's the person who I help on with the radio or the website or the
Yeah, the morning stuff. Yep.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was the jumping off the diving board. I just said, okay, I'm going to do this.
Mm. Wow. And that's really great. For entrepreneurs out there, just please take from Hava's example. If you can get one good client, make it repeatable, build your business off of that, right? Does that sound right?
It does sound right. And besides that, I was already doing that. So I already had other clients, which
Mm.
I hadn't jumped off the diving board with yet.
So
There's a defining moment.
here's a question then. We'll hop right back into it, but just as a value add for the audience. So a lot of people, you knew what you could charge. There's a lot that goes into that, right? Just right off the bat, saying the wrong thing with the Russian lady that you helped with. So what advice would you give on that regard? Saying the right thing when it comes to
I
offering?
don't I didn't really have any advice on that. I just said an amount and he said, no problem. It was a really high amount, in my opinion.
Sure, sure. So
It was
start
an
high.
amount I would be scared to say, but I said it.
All right, all right. And you were scared to say it, but you just said it anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys can relate to that, we'll have her information where you can find her and reach out to her at the end of the episode here, guys. I'm excited to already list that, but let's hold that off until the end. So you jumped off the diving board there, and then what did the next year look like for you?
Oh, it was a wonderful year. We would talk about 40 hours to make a 10-minute radio show. And what we would do is we would make the most, not exciting, but the most visual. He was so capable of vivifying, I like the word, vivifying his words for the radio, for health, for people. And he also cared so much, as if he knew who he was talking to in those cars in San Francisco driving to work in the morning. And he would have helpful advice that could change their life, seriously.
It just must be done, huh? I'm going to stop the share here for a second. So it sounds like you work with a lot of folks that just operate on and understand you when you meet them, when they can easily see a it just must be done person sitting on the other side of the table.
That
That's
is exactly what happens.
it's
They,
so cool.
yeah. And then sometimes they send me to their friends. They'll send me to their friends, and that's good too. I mean, one sent me to a psychologist who needed to learn, a Russian psychologist who needed to learn how to write. He speaks well, but he can't write. So I helped him learn how to structure an article, and then to write an article for Psychology Today.
Cool. Cool. And when you think about it, these are probably things that people might be very personally, how would you call it, reluctant to admit.
Oh, it's that, you know what? That is the reason why I can't sell myself.
Hmm.
Because a person has to be, you just hit the nail on the head. A person has to be 100% ready. Like, this is enough already. I need to really change how I'm thinking and doing things. They need to jump off the diving board too
Wow.
for themselves and admit what they need. It's a very hard thing, because the thing that I do is quite deep with them.
Asking for help.
Asking for help on, really, like, there was a Japanese gentleman who worked for a big company here in Chicago, but he couldn't go out with people personally because he didn't know any personal words. He only knew business words. So he wanted me to help him pick out beer to drink and what to say and what to laugh at. And that's very personal,
Hmm. Yeah.
to say that I don't know what's funny. Why are they laughing?
Wow. Wow. That's really amazing. And so, as some of our audience knows, we work with a lot of folks that can't get their message across. They've got beautiful, incredible things. They've usually lived a very traumatic life. Because of that, they're very brilliant, let's say, sensitive people, considerate people to a specific problem that they had. And that's buried in so much stuff in the past of how they got there. And they just know that it must be done. So, how is someone like that going to pull it off, Hava?
Oh, wow. Your questions are just um, very good. I work with someone who's like that, who was traumatized, seriously traumatized, and he pulled it off. And the problem that he had was, first of all, he had to overcome the trauma. He knows other people have trauma just like that. So what he did was he would give speeches on how he overcame the trauma. However, people who are still suffering from the trauma and reliving it often can't just jump into his shoes where he overcame it. So the leap was too far for them to get on his bandwagon that he would speak about. So they'd say, oh, that was a nice speech. You're very handsome. I enjoyed looking at you while you spoke. And then nobody gets, I can see that over and over. People get nowhere. They enjoy the speech. It felt good. But what did they say? I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do they pull that off? This has been the person that I've worked with for 25 years. And he is now just really, really pulling it off. And what he realized, he worked in a prison, and he worked in a prison to help prisoners realize who they are. And I said, well, they're in prison. And I like to just ask the question, what will it help them to realize who they are? They'll say, well, because they won't be in pain anymore. That's what he said. And I said, well, how do you know it worked? He said, because they cry. And they just, so what we worked on was what made those people cry. And like he hit them at their sweet spot. And now he can do it almost 100% of the time.
Wow, I'm really blown away by that. I'm reminded of a military man who spent a lot of time after getting out of prison himself, just going back. And there was a really powerful story one day of an inmate who I watched his speech, and he said this man came in every day, treated us all the same, and he said something to me who had never been said that had never been said to me in my life before. He said, "I believe in you,"
Mhm.
and he just lost it, right?
Yeah,
Career criminal, murdering people, doesn't care about anything, and just becomes like clay in this man's hands willingly, is where
yeah,
you started.
willingly. It
Willingly.
wasn't even willingly. What it was it was a will exposed. It wasn't like, oh, I'm willing to cry now. No, it was a will exposed. And that's what it does. It just, nobody in prison wanted to wake up and kill somebody.
Yeah, no little boy or girl started out with that intention.
No.
Will get there to that point. And the great thing is if you've got the problem out there, you're not alone, because people like Hava or whatnot are out there, and they will help you get your thoughts together. They will help you connect with the people that you want to connect with. Is that fair to say?
Well, what's fair to say is that a person who has a very important message that they can deliver to somebody who needs the message, a person that has a very important message, I can help them get that message across. Like the person who goes to visit the people in the prison, let's just say he just has this story that he tells over and over. And I'm not saying he does, but he could get just used to saying the story over and over. And he might not come up with, I believe in you, where it comes out of his body and soul and mind that the person believes him, that he believes in him.
Mm.
It's like keeping it raw, keeping it alive, and making it uh, in making it permeate. The,
Wow. I'm imagining almost diffusal of food coloring in a glass of water.
that's right. There you
Wow.
go. That's a good image. There's a good visual.
Ah, yes, yes, you appreciate the symbology and those kinds of things. So, when we think about that house on the rock for someone's message, right? You help them build up that structure, and that doesn't just start with words or presentation. That comes with perspective. That comes with a lot of deep conversation of turning 40 hours into 10 minutes of extremely intentional, highly targeted work for someone who you're really there to make their lives better. Like,
Yes,
whoa, whoa, that is so cool that you do what you do. That is awesome. So,
like boom, like boom.
so who are some people that you've been inspired by? People who are doing great work in your space, or an author that you're really inspired by?
Um, um, well, I can only say that I'm inspired by two people, and that would be my rabbi and his wife.
Okay. Would you like to give a shout out to them here on the cast?
That would be Rabbi Meir Hai Ben Kiyun and Rivka Ben Kiyun, his wife, who are the rabbi and rebbitzin of the Gold Coast Chabad in Chicago. They are, the rabbi just had a birthday, and there were 45 people on the Zoom of his birthday. Some that had met him 40 years ago and didn't know he was here and just heard he was here and had learned from him then. He's a very well-known, smart, and he just He'll hit you every time. I've been learning from him for 21 years, and every session is different for every week. Every Tuesday for 21 years, and every session is different.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing that someone
Yeah.
can do that for that long and that you have that level of appreciation. Oh, that's fantastic.
And his wife as well. I mean, it's amazing. So that's the shout out that I would give to anybody who wants to learn anything about life.
Wow. Find a mentor? Is that something
Well,
you'd encourage?
find the right mentor, not just
Okay.
find a mentor.
Well, it's
Find the
interesting.
one that really permeates you and takes you where you didn't, where you wanted to go but wouldn't without them.
Hmm. That's interesting. I'm thinking of my children now, to be honest, at one level, and that at the adult level, I'm so honored by a gauntlet of people who have been there at stages in my life. Eric Johnson, Mike Johnston, Mark Livingston, my dad. Oh man, names upon names upon names. Brian Kearns, you're fantastic. Gene Cordenbrock, all of these people who have been a part of my life. And I didn't have anyone in that space. I went out and found those people because I was determined. It got to a point in my life where I would not be denied any longer. And I'm glad I didn't meet you at that time because getting back to messaging, my message was not crisp. Let me put it out that way. My message, I'm so thankful to my community and to people like you who took the time and helped me become a little bit more understandable. Thank you. Like
Oh,
what you do.
absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you for for making me so lucky
Yeah,
to have you be the lunch club person that I spoke to.
sure, sure. And you know what? Are you on any social platforms where people can find you or they can engage in this conversation with you, or where can people reach out to you?
Okay, well, they can reach out to me by my email, or, and I'll give that if you want that.
Sure.
I'm also on LinkedIn, but my name is spelled unusually. So I'll give you my email and we'll go from there.
That
It's,
sounds great.
yeah, it's Chavah, Chavah at growthteamservices.com. Growthteamservices.com. So get me an email, or if you want to advance right away, my last name is Golden. It's Chavah Golden, and there aren't that many of us, so you could probably find me on LinkedIn or Facebook or anywhere else.
That's great.
Instagram has my cute little drawings. If you want, they have each a meaning and a story, and they're fun to look at.
Cool. Cool.
It's at
And
Hava. I think that's my Instagram. I'm not sure though. So
okay, sounds good. And so LinkedIn or an email is preferred for you. And
yeah.
then are there some things that you'd like to talk about in your life coming up that you're looking forward to, that you see a lot of value in for others, or there are some events that people could attend to come hang out with you?
I am having some closed sessions right now with people who listen to the rabbi's classes. If anyone wants to go to those, you don't have to be Jewish, by the way. To go to those, just let me know by email. And then what we do, we have a closed session by invitation, and we discuss the concepts of people who really want to go deeper. But I'm working on a book. I don't know if I'll ever write this book, but it's about thought experiments, and it's about people who have trouble getting up and doing what needs to be done. So I thought of how about let's just sit and think about what needs to be done and picturing it enough so that pretty soon you get up and do it. So there's that. There's something of thought experiments. I can explain it more. I'm not prepared to say the title yet. But
Sure.
how to tackle things, I have the dynamics of tackling. And it's not like get a, I don't know, a helmet and a football outfit, but tackling projects, tackling anything, and it's not even a step by step. So no worries, it's not your 9 steps to tackling anything book. It's a sort of a box in a book. It'll be a box in this book that I'm thinking of writing.
A box and a book. And so I would love to see this book come to life.
Mhm.
And I'm actually going to give a shout out to Aaliyah Mar here. Hava Golden needs a little bit of work or a little bit of support on getting this amazing book out. And let's definitely do that with some of the things you've talked about and the way that you've served others in that way. Man, it would be great to have a team supporting you on building that book in reverse. Isn't it cool that when you serve others in the way that you do, someone comes back and is interested in doing the same with you?
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yes, we
Yeah.
understand each other in that way. That's so cool. I was actually when I heard that on the call with you because I heard myself almost coming through the call in a lot of ways. I was just like, it's going to be so much fun. I think she'll appreciate it. And here we are today. So thank you for coming out. And remember that was Hava at growthteamservices.com for anybody that's interested. We're going to close down the call here today with what are you, we talked about it. What are you inspired by or pleasured by these days? What are you really looking forward to for the next year, Hava?
I look forward to enabling more people to understand what's important.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. There are things in your life that are so important to you, your truths, and how we approach those, how we get out of bed seems to be, in our community, a beautiful question. And then each of us can live our life as an attempt to better understand that question. Guys, this is such an honor to work with you guys whenever we get a chance. And Hava, thank you for coming on and being willing to talk about how you go make lives better and how you're impacting the world. Thank you. Just
Thank you, Brian.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun and everyone have a great day. Cheers.